Hello everyone, welcome to the Gallatin County Republican Women's live stream event. Before we begin, I would like to mention that during the primary, Gallatin County Republican women do not endorse any specific candidate, and all candidates speaking today have filed with the Montana Secretary of State. I would also like to mention that all Republican legislative candidates in Gallatin County were invited to participate in our live stream today, and those featured are the ones that accepted our invitation. Today, we are pleased to present to you 4 Republican candidates running in Gallatin County for the Montana State Legislature. Those candidates are, in alphabetical order, Randy Chamberlin for House District 64, Dr. Jane Gillette for House District 64, Bryan Haysom for House District 63, and Senator Gary Perry for Senate District 35. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to discuss topics of importance to them. After all candidates have had an opportunity to speak, we will have a Q&A session. Our first candidate is Randy Chamberlin for House District 64. Randy and his wife have been married for 38 years and have 4 children and 10 grandchildren, all of whom live, work, or attend school in the Gallatin Valley. Randy has been self-employed since 1985. Randy believes that God has given him the skills and abilities that have served him well in raising a family, running a business, and being part of this community, for over 29 years. Please welcome Randy Chamberlin.
Hello. Well, let me discuss some of my qualifications. First of all, I'm Randy Chamberlin, running for House District 64, and this has been a really new experience for me. I've done a lot of things over my lifetime, but this is different. I've always been politically minded, but running for office is not something that I've ever done before, and it's a new experience, and it's been good. It has its ups and downs. I've lived in this district for 25 years, and so I have a vested interest here. As she said, my family lives in this valley, and so I have a vested interest. I care about what's going on in Montana and what the future holds for Montana. Let's see. My qualifications, I don't have much legislative experience. My opponent has a lot of legislative experience. If that's what you're looking for, then you're going to want to vote for my opponent. But I bring, I believe, a lot of common sense, business experience, leadership. I have a company at this point that has around 40 employees. And so I believe I'm well suited to manage a company and employees and bring people together and bring leadership together, set a course, and move forward. Really, I'm just a citizen trying to do my part for Montana, to preserve Montana, and do what's right. I care about the future, and I feel like it's time to get involved because I care about the future of Montana, and I think it's time that I get involved, and I think it's time for a lot of good conservative people to get involved. If we care about the future of Montana, we need to. Where I stand, I'm trying to be very forthright in what I stand for. I'm a pro-life guy, pro-gun guy, pro-access to public lands. I love to hunt and fish and get out into our forest. And so I'd like to see as much access as we can. I believe in small government. I think we have a spending problem, not a tax problem. We pay plenty of taxes, and I believe that we need to reel in our spending, and especially with the economy, the way I think it's going to head, we're going to have to tighten our belts even more for a while. It's going to be tough, but we can get through it, and we can prosper. But we are going to have to tighten our belts for a little while. Some of the things that I'm passionate about, I believe we need some tax reform. It's just property tax especially. It's not right for people to get taxed out of their homes and property, ranches, whatever it may be. And it's a big problem, especially for us right here, because we have property values that are increasing so quickly, and then our taxes go up and people can no longer afford to pay taxes. I guess my question is, do we really own property, or are we just renting? But anyways, we need to do something about property taxes, limiting them. And my thought is, if we limit the basis of your property tax to what you paid for your home or property, you'd still have some increases with mill levies and bond issues, but essentially you'll be able to plan for the future. I think some issues that are going to be coming up in this next legislative session is sales tax. I'm hearing that there's a movement out to bring the sales tax up again. And I think we need to have some strong leadership against the sales tax. Montanans have overwhelmingly been against that for a long time. And the only way I believe we should be accepting of a sales tax is if we eliminated some other taxes, like property or income tax. But we do not need another tax. Another issue is pensions. We have a pension system that is just out of control, and we do need to make sure we fund what we have promised and those promises that we have made. But I think we probably need to make some changes to the future pensions so that it can be sustainable. We have a problem there, and we cannot sustain it. What's going to happen with our pensions is, to pay those, we're going to be taking money from other line items out of the budget to pay for those. So in the future, we need to make some changes to that. Those are going to be tough changes. Citizens, I believe citizens need to be involved with some oversight. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot to bring, and I don't see why we can't bring them in and have some more transparency in our government, and let the citizens come in and help us figure out some of how we can produce more services, or at least the same amount of services, with maybe holding the line on our income. And we're going to have to do that. It would be great to see and to bring in a lot of our citizens so that we can do more with the same money. I appreciate your vote. I'm a small government kind of guy. I believe that our liberties are infringed upon by the more government we have. The bigger size we have of government infringes on our liberties. And I would like to keep that as minimum as possible. So if you would like to, I need your support, and I would ask for your support for Randy Chamberlin for House District 64. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Our next candidate is Dr. Jane Gillette, House District 64. Dr. Gillette is a veteran entrepreneur and doctor whose life goal is to serve our nation and community. A fierce advocate and student of the U.S. Constitution, she has extensive qualifications and experience that will allow her to effectively support the Republican platform and conservative values. In addition to being a doctor, she holds a master's in public health from the University of Montana, studied executive-level organizational leadership at both Kellogg School of Management and Wharton School of Business, and value-based healthcare at Harvard. She serves or has served on many high-profile state and national boards, managing multi-million-dollar organizations. Dr. Gillette, who serves as a member of Congressman Gianforte's Healthcare Advisory Committee, is a nationally recognized leader in evidence-informed policy development and transformational healthcare. Aside from these qualifications, she brings with her 15 years of policy and legislative experience in Helena and Washington, D.C. Welcome, Dr. Jane Gillette.
Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here. So, am I positioned right? Good. Thank you, Carol. I really appreciate it. First thing I wanted to say is just thank you to anybody who's tuned in or is watching this right now, because it tells me that you're engaged and you care, and we need more people that are engaged and caring. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a small plug for the Gallatin Republican Women. We don't discriminate. Even if you're a man, you can still join. We'll still let you. It's a tremendous value. I have a lot of memberships in different organizations, and this happens to be one of my very, very favorite. And also thank you to the Republican Women for hosting this, because it has been difficult, right, to get around to houses and to meet voters. So this is a great way to meet voters. And I would just throw this out here. If anyone wants to come visit me, we have a small place on South Cottonwood, and I make a mean cup of tea, and you'd be welcome to come visit me anytime. And I think Carol did a really nice introduction, so I won't maybe go over quite all of those things, but I think my qualifications can be seen in how many people and organizations have come forth to support me in the campaign. First, I would just say that Representative Carrie White, who's the longtime representative of this district, who's termed out. He's a tremendous mentor of mine, and he's been very supportive of me during this process. Dr. Shawn Gillis, you might know her from the pro-life world. She's a champion for life, and she too has been supportive in this campaign, as well as Sheriff Bryan, and I don't know that he needs any introduction. As far as associations, I've received many supportive different types of campaign support. So for instance, the Montana contractors, even though I don't work in construction, but I think that they know that I'm a hard worker and a good listener, and I'm sure that that's why that they were supportive. The Montana Association of Realtors, as well as the Montana Hospital Association, the Montana Dental Association, but my prize is actually the Montana Shooting Sports endorsement that I received, and I think that tells you where I stand on Second Amendment, and I won't spend any time talking about that this afternoon. My education, Carol went over before. I'm a certified education junkie. I love to learn, so this has been a great opportunity also to learn, just going through this campaign process and learning about the issues. As far as my profession, I work mostly in healthcare consulting and in research. My area of expertise in research, I have two. One is called health disparities research, so why some populations get sick and some don't. And the other one is called translational research, so that's how you get scientific findings into practice. And in fact, I just completed a book chapter on evidence-informed policymaking, so that's how you get scientific evidence into policy. And I think COVID highlights that, right, about how important it is to have good data-driven decision-making instead of basing decisions based on fear or anxiety or just emotions. So I'm really a champion for that endeavor for sure. As far as experience, like Carol said, I have about 15 years of legislative experience moving bills forward. So in the past sessions in Helena, I've worked on issues related to telehealth, also another bill that put in different patient protections in insurance plans, and then this last session worked on a scope of practice bill to help expand the scope of practice of healthcare practitioners. On the federal level, I'm currently involved in the revision of McCarran-Ferguson Act. It's a little dry, but basically what the McCarran-Ferguson Act, the revision does is it helps diminish anti-competitive practices within insurance companies. So that's already passed through the House, and now we're on to the Senate, and I'm proud that I've been able to work with Senator Daines. He's the very primary sponsor of that bill, and we can thank the senator for his support. In fact, I just talked to him yesterday over a Zoom call about that as well. I'm very connected with businesses, of course. I belong to the West Yellowstone Chamber, the Big Sky Chamber, the Bozeman Chamber, of course, Rotary. I make sure to attend the Tax Resort Board meetings and, of course, attend our County Commission meetings as well, because I think that's how you get connected with the real issues that are facing people. I have a very practical knowledge about the programs that are implemented within our state government, and I'll talk a little bit more about those later. And then the third thing, besides qualifications and experience, I would say that I'm conservative. I support our president, and I always will vote and make decisions with integrity and also with our Constitution and our liberties at the forefront of everything. In fact, the first bill that I intend to put together and submit is a pro-life bill that would promote adoption instead of abortion. And I've already been working with an attorney to do the background research on that and have developed some draft language around that. So moving into what I'd like to accomplish, one, you heard it, pro-life bill. Number two, you might be able to tell, would be to systematically put into practice within our state government processes that are driven by data. And the legislators do get quite a bit of data already. The issue is that sometimes it's biased, or sometimes it's cherry-picked, and sometimes it's just too late to actually make a meaningful decision. So systemically working within the state legislature to make sure that people have maximally objective, minimally biased data that's timely and in plain language so that people can make good decisions for the people that they represent. And so how that might work out in the policymaking process is, for instance, maybe you have a program that's performing here and the science says that it should be performing here. And legislators and thought leaders can use that scientific evidence to either adjust their approach or to maybe even sunset a program and get rid of it altogether. So that's how you use science in the policymaking process. The third thing that I'd like to do, and it's kind of a heavy lift, and I'll need a lot of help, but I think there's some really qualified legislators that can help me with this, is I'd like to reform our social safety net. And so Peggy Webb, she's out of Billings. Last session, she ran quite a few bills that were very high quality, that looked at these very issues, and she would be someone who I would look to for mentoring and also for partnership. And so I'll tell you what I mean by revising and reforming the social safety net. So there's lots of different programs that are within our social safety net, like TANF and SNAP and Medicaid, and there's housing assistance, there's all kinds of programs. But one of the there's actually two issues, and one of the primary issues is that we don't consider benefits holistically. So for instance, when you apply, you might apply with the understanding that your income is this, but then you also get this benefit on top of that benefit on top of that benefit. And by the time you get all your benefits, you're actually not at poverty. Now you're way into the middle income. So the first thing I would advocate for is to reimagine our social safety net so we look at it with a more holistic approach of considering all these other types of different safety net programs that people are getting and restructure those programs. The second one would be to, and I think this is actually an easier one, but would be, we have really some perverse incentives right now in our social safety net that actually punish you if you work and punish you if you're married and a couple. And so, for instance, you've probably heard of stories where, so-and-so, he said that he didn't want to work extra hours because he would lose his Medicaid. Or she doesn't want to take an extra bit of pay because she'll lose her TANF. I mean, those are very real problems that are happening. But there's ways, actually, that you can phase those benefits out so it doesn't punish people for working. One of the best ways to move people out of poverty, no surprise, is working. The other best way is to keep them married. And unfortunately, we have a system right now where you're punished if you're married and you're rewarded if you're divorced or not married. So equaling that out so that people aren't punished. So it's a heavy lift. It's a big one, and I can go on and on and on. The good news is I know where all the skeletons are in the closet of that because I've worked in that world for a long, long time. But more importantly, I also know the solutions. And so I'd like to again thank you today for this opportunity to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the state legislature, and I hope that you vote for us.
Thank you, Jane. Our next candidate is Bryan Haysom for House District 63. Bryan Haysom is an MSU graduate running for House District 63. Bryan states that Montana House District 63 straddles MSU, the beating heart of Bozeman. Bryan was born in Bozeman and has lived in the valley his whole life, except for a few brief years where he served in the Army and while he was teaching overseas in China. He is committed to bringing a strong Montanan representation to our Congress and spending time with constituents to bring their voice to the legislation. Please welcome Bryan Haysom.
Thanks for that introduction. So as a Bobcat, I am committed to bringing representative voice for MSU to our legislature. I believe our education system needs reform to give educators better pay and to make education easier to access for those who struggle to get through it. I learned a lot from my time overseas teaching English and organizing private schools while I was in China. I also want to be a guiding light for children in broken homes. So I will push for legislation that helps the Department of Health and Human Services be better equipped to handle situations where children end up being removed from homes and placed with good foster parents. And I would very much like to see families that have an ability to succeed. As a conservative, I support pro-life agenda. I am pro-Second Amendment, and I also will protect taxpayers by trying to keep new taxes from being pushed through the legislation. And that's pretty much what I have to offer you right now, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bryan. Our last candidate for today is Senator Gary Perry for Senate District 35. Senator Perry is an American civil engineer, businessman, and politician. Senator Perry and his wife Lisa live in Manhattan, Montana, where he owns, Senator Perry was elected to the Montana Senate in 2002 and was reelected in 2006. Montana term limits disqualified him from re-election in 2010. Senator Perry wants to return to the Senate to complete unfinished business from his prior terms. He served with the Democrat governor for 6 years and now expects to serve with and work with a Republican governor. He is motivated to do further good for the people of Montana. Welcome, Senator Gary Perry.
Hi, and I am Gary Perry, and this is a very strange campaign season. We've never seen anything like it at all. There are no, like normal, there would be banquets and dinners and speeches and knocking on doors and going out to see everybody, and we can't do that. And I thank the Gallatin County Republican women for doing this for all the candidates. It's a lot of work goes into this, but this is about, right now, the only way we can reach out to our constituents and our voters. So I am a retired business owner, civil engineer. I'm a civil engineer with an emphasis in hydrosystems, hydrology, environmental engineering, and water resources policy, which is really important because I spent 8 years on natural resources policy, and we dealt with water considerably. Irrigation, groundwater, everything. So I was term limited in 11. I was required to stay out for 8 years. I could have gone to the House, but the way the term limits law in Montana works is that you serve 8 years, 2 terms in the Senate or 4 terms in the House, and then you're term limited. But you can go to the other house. I chose not to do that. I chose to honor the term limits that Montana citizens passed. So I was on Judiciary Committee for 8 years in the Senate. I was chairman of the committee in 2009. I was on the Energy and Telecommunications Committee as well for 8 years. And as a business owner, I signed the front side of a check for over 20 years. So why am I running for this office? I didn't like what I saw in the last 10 years since I've been out. There have been a lot of dissension in the legislature. People are having a hard time getting along. There was some decorum back when I was in there. And now there is so much dissension between the parties and within the parties. I'd like to go back return to some civility in the legislature. Why am I running? It's not possible for me to sit on the sidelines. I'm not that kind of person. I can't just watch government raise our taxes and erode our constitutional rights and see them to continue to deteriorate. Our Second Amendment rights must be protected. And there are now factions who are attempting to erode those rights. There's also a movement to promote and adopt socialism, not only in our national government. We listen to the Democrats, Biden, Warren. I don't even want to mention the rest of the names. But they want to promote socialism. They want us to be controlled entirely by the government, and they can control our property, and they can control our business and everything. We'd work for the government. They're wanting to hand out money to everybody, a guaranteed income. We can't afford that. We can't afford universal insurance either for everybody. It's not possible. So I oppose any attempts to adopt socialism in this state. Such an economic system would lower the standard of living of all. For example, look at Venezuela. An expansion of big government programs such as Medicaid further reduces self-reliance, and it increases dependence on free handouts. So when a ballot initiative was put before the citizens of Montana in 2018, and it was soundly defeated, it is an unwritten rule that the legislature will not overturn the will of the people. Yet that is exactly what happened in the 2019 session. So on the 2018 general ballot was the question of Medicaid expansion, and the ballot initiative was defeated by the voters of Montana, including Senate District 35. But a few short months later, a few Republicans joined with the Democrats to pass the Medicaid expansion plan that the voters of Montana had just rejected. To overturn the will of the voters is a legislative sin. It bothers me a lot that happened, but it gave Bullock what he wanted. I know firsthand about the disincentives of big government programs, what they induce. When the business equipment tax was first introduced and was first reduced to 3%, I saw a reason to purchase for my business a $200,000 CNC machine, providing not only an opportunity for expansion, but an opportunity for an employee to step up. After purchasing the new equipment, an employee was promoted, trained, and given a raise to operate the new machine. About a month later, that employee informed me that we had hurt him because his raise bumped him above some level of income for a government program, so therefore he must quit. And he did. Several experiences such as that showed me that the government programs designed to help workers actually harm them. There are very numerous factual experiences that I have in which big government programs have been a detriment to not only business development, but to the ultimate harm of the workers that those programs were theoretically designed to help. Many times Montana's mining and timber industries have been stymied or halted altogether by frivolous lawsuits filed by environmental groups. Having served on Senate Natural Resources Committee, I believe that most, if not all, of those lawsuits are without merit, because Montana's DEQ has carefully issued proper permits to allow such mining or logging, and the lawsuits are purposed for either denying or delaying such legally permitted activity. Those are the actions that destroy jobs for Montana citizens, reducing wealth and welfare of those who would be employed, and simultaneously reducing the tax revenues that would help support local services, and education of our children. So the decision to run was simple. My wife, Lisa, and I have grandsons. We look at them and we consider the future with which they will be endowed. It is the result of our actions today that will determine the future of our grandsons and of your children and of your grandchildren and of all our progeny. It is therefore my duty to do all that I can to provide a future that we all desire for our children. So what do I want to accomplish in this office? It's my objective to continue the work that I diligently pursued in my first 8 years in the Senate. And that work does include to create a business environment that will promote economic growth and prosperity for all the citizens of Montana. Reduce government spending and resist increases in taxes. Pursue property tax reform. It remains totally arbitrary and capricious, and it cannot continue to be the cause of citizens selling their homes because of the taxes they can no longer afford. I want to protect the most vulnerable of human life, the alive but not yet born. I am pro-life. I want to protect the Second Amendment. It will be my goal to further strengthen our rights to possess guns, whether for hunting or personal home and family protection, whether concealed or open carry, as allowed by law for law-abiding citizens. I will continue my work on domestic violence. When in the Senate, I served on the Domestic Violence Fatalities Review Board and sponsored and passed several bills in the pursuit of reducing crimes against women and families. Having sponsored and passed Jessica's Law of Montana, if you remember, that was a bill that started in Florida back in 2006, I believe. And in 2005, I passed a bill that would require sexual predators, level 3 sexual predators, to wear ankle bracelets, and we can keep an eye on where they are at all times. Well, Jessica's Law required a mandatory sentence of 25 years imprisonment with no possibility of parole for anybody who molests and sexually molests children under 12 years old, 12 and under. So my fight to protect the young and innocent children of Montana from sexual predators will continue. Tort reform. Think of lawsuits against mining and logging and your own doctor. Doctors tell me that they are plagued with lawsuits and frivolous lawsuits, and look at the malpractice insurance costs that they endure. I will promote balanced use of public lands, keeping trails open for multiple use. I will lower health care costs while striving to improve health care. I will also work to require photo ID for voting. I am endorsed by the Montana Shooting Sports Association. And why would you vote for me? This candidate humbly asks for your vote. That vote will be for you, for your future, and for that of your children. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you, Gary. We are now going to begin our question and answer session. If you have any questions and have a Facebook account, please ask them now. I'll wait a few minutes, but so far we don't have any questions. So if you have questions, please ask them now. It appears that we don't have any questions. So I would like to thank all of our candidates and audience for joining us today. This video and additional information on each candidate will be on our website at GallatinCountyRepublicanWomen.com. I would like to extend a very big thank you to Jeff Bent, owner of Obsidian Realty Group, for providing and running the camera equipment, to Toby Zangenberg, owner of Ambiance Lighting, and Eric Jacobs, owner of Jacobs Electric Inc., for donating their office space and allowing us to host the live stream. And to Gallatin County Republican Women Board members Stacy Jacobs, Karen Clements, and Mary Pham for arranging the location, candidate participation, and Facebook live stream. Tomorrow, May 1st, Gallatin County Republican Women will host a second live stream for 4 additional Republican legislative candidates in Gallatin County at 12 o'clock noon. Please go to GallatinCountyRepublicanWomen.com for additional information on the candidates. This concludes our Facebook live stream for today. Thank you all very much for participating, and we hope that you will join us again tomorrow. Thank you.